What did the Matrix try to warn us about? What? What is it, Moon? What is it? Let's find out.
Greatest films ever made, hitting $460 million in just box office sales alone, and The Matrix was an instant hit, and after 2 decades, its relevancy continues to stand strong, with terms coined from the movies such as The Matrix and The Red Pill becoming widely adopted in modern culture. And yet even more interestingly is that The Matrix is perhaps one of the most beautifully prophetic and meaningful movies ever created in history. So what is it about this film that made it so culturally important? How could this movie continue to be so relevant after 20 years? What was the movie tapping into? Well, this brings us on to the bedroom of a
You know, I heard somewhere that great arts, great creations, the creators often had no idea that that was the message. They just they understood one aspect and they were trying to pass a certain message, but then the different meanings and different symbolisms and cultural affiliations that that creation goes on to um, create, they didn't consciously create that. They didn't think about it. They weren't like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this because this and this. No, it just happened, you know. And that's just the beauty of inspiration. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know where the idea comes from. It just pops into our head. And we give ourselves the credit for that, but we know deep down that we didn't do that, Great art, great music, we didn't do that. It just came. Inspiration isn't ever us. It's just we are the transmitters into the world.
depressed, pasty software engineer, a nighttime hacker called Neo, who is slumped over in his trash-filled room, with the bleak film colouring resembling his nihilistic, empty, dull existence that Neo lives in. At the start of The Matrix, Neo is a nihilistic man. His corporate life and monotonous desk job makes Neo feel that his actions don't have any effect on reality. Small details in the film make this even clearer, with Neo's flat being numbered 101, a direct reference to George Orwell's book 1984. In Orwell's book, Room 101 was a torture room, where people would be shown their greatest fears in order to mold them in the state's ideal image. And Neo's life is lived inside Room 101, where he is tortured by the routine and can't find any meaning in his life. So he seeks to find these answers through his double life as a hacker, but comes up empty every time. Whatever he does while locked inside the Matrix has no meaning. But one day this starts to change, when he wakes up to find a strange message on his monitor, with the message telling him that the quote Matrix has him and that he must follow the White Rabbit. It seems as though this could just be another hacker getting back at Neo. This could all just be a prank. But then the last thing the computer writes is knock knock Neo, just before somebody does exactly that on his door. And when Neo opens the door, he finds it's a group of people led by a man who wants to buy illicit information held on a storage device. Neo lets out a sigh of relief. This is business as usual, but after the purchase is complete, the group invites him out to the club, and right as he's about to refuse, Neo sees a white rabbit tattoo on the shoulder of one of the women. Realizing that this tattoo is part of the instructions sent by him on the computer, he accepts the invitation, knowing deep down that something is up. The decision to follow the White Rabbit is the first of many decisions in Neo's rejection of the Matrix, but he doesn't quite know this yet, and so when arriving at the club, Neo is approached by a woman named Trinity, who cryptically warns him of impending danger. Neo recognizes her name as a fellow computer hacker, however she says that was all a long time ago. Trinity then talks to Neo about his general dissatisfaction with life, as she knows that Neo is aimless and tormented by a lack of meaning in his life. She knows that nihilism has sucked his soul, so she promises him that there will be an answer. Cut to the next scene and we see Neo waking up late for work and proceeding to get chewed out by his boss. But in the back of Neo's mind are questions. Was following the White Rabbit just a dream? Who was Trinity? All while Neo continues his droney, hollowed out existence, living like human cattle in an artificial box with artificial lighting, trapped inside a spiritual cage with all the other droogs. The crushing weight of his sterile existence makes Neo even more curious about the White Rabbit. It's a glimpse of something different, and just as Neo continues to stay stuck behind his cubicle, he is then struck by a call from a man named Morpheus.
They're coming for you, Neo, and I don't know.
I will not pay for YouTube Premium. I shall not. It's going to happen. Right.
What they're going to do.
Who alerts him that the danger Trinity was telling Neo about is real, and that Neo is being followed by agents. In a tense scene, Neo briefly evades some agents who have been looking for him, but Neo's mind is the only thing holding him back, And Neo is actually successful in escaping the agents. He's finally taking that call to adventure. He's choosing to take his life into his own hands. This is the start of Neo breaking free from his cage. But then he comes up against his biggest challenge, as Morpheus tells Neo that the only way he can escape the agents is to walk across the ledge. But his programmed mind just can't overcome this obstacle. He doesn't believe in himself or his abilities. He's been programmed to be comfortable. He's never been near real danger, so his strength, his mind, and ability is hampered, causing him to refuse that call to adventure. And by refusing the call, this represents Neo refusing to tackle his fear. He knows he'll be successful if he overcomes his fear, and yet his weak, anxious mind is his biggest failure. His nihilism is what keeps him trapped in the Matrix, and so Neo fails to succeed, resulting in him being escorted to an interrogation room. At first, Neo believes that he's being prosecuted by regular government workers, but when Neo demands to be given his rights, they seal his mouth shut, as if it was done by magic. They then implant a mechanical tracking bug into his stomach, meaning that Neo will now always be tracked in the Matrix. He's an outlier, and outliers are the biggest threat to their society. And then just like that, Neo is back in his bed, again
Give me a sec.
seeming
Pardon me, I'm back.
like this was all just a dream, and yet somehow Neo is immediately called again by Morpheus, who gets Trinity and some other crew members to pick him up. Before Neo meets Morpheus, Trinity removes the bug that is tracking him, proving to Neo that this wasn't a dream. From here, Neo goes on to meet his mentor, Morpheus, who's living inside an abandoned building. Morpheus confirms all of Neo's suspicions, telling him that his whole life is a lie, and that he was born a slave to the Matrix. This was why he was so demasculated, becoming just another corporate drone. It was all by design. However, Morpheus then offers Neo a choice: the decision on whether to remain blissfully ignorant or learn the true nature of the Matrix. Similar to our own reality, nobody can really be told what the Matrix is. One has to experience it and find out for themselves. So Morpheus then opens up his palms, revealing the notorious red and blue pills in his separate hands. In his left hand lies the blue pill, Neo's ticket to blissful ignorance. If he takes this pill, Neo will simply wake back up in his bed, believing in the nihilistic system that has brainwashed him, going back to his lonely, miserable, atomized existence, all while remaining ignorant to the true nature of the world. And on the other hand,
Well, you know, that's the thing. A lot of us can feel the Matrix. We just refuse to acknowledge that it's there. You know, we refuse to acknowledge we live isn't even the life that we want. It's not the life that fulfills us. You know, we're doing it some out of survival, some because they don't know any other way, you know, and that's why, as simple as happiness is, as children, we knew happiness like the back of our hands. The older we get, the stranger the word happiness seems to feel, because at some point somewhere we just got disconnected from our inner being, and that's what the Matrix really does. It distracts, it disillusions, it gives you a false sense of control, when in truth you're suffering, you're carrying pressure, you're carrying all this pain, all this turmoil day to day, living a meaningless existence, because the truth is it doesn't fulfill you. And for you guys, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have to spell it out, you know? Some of us are just doing it day to day. We're just living day to day. No exact sense of direction, no exact sense of purpose. We're just doing what society expects us to do. They expect us to work every single day and then die at the end of it all. You know, no time for ourselves, no time to express ourselves, to live life. You know, most of us are just surviving. And the truth is, deep down, we all know, deep down, we can all tell that we're not exactly at peace in this life that we're in. We're not exactly happy doing what we do. And the truth is, some of us are even making good money doing something, but we're not fulfilled. You know, it's just a means to an end. And at some point, the means stop being important as long as the end paid for our, you know, our dues. And that's sad. It gives you just enough to keep you there, but not enough to let you go, you know, to stare truth down the eyes, down the truth. Pause. To stare truth down the eyes and, you know, take it for what it is and choose to go against it regardless. And some of us would give up halfway. I've forgotten his name. The guy that betrayed them, I guess they would tell us eventually. The guy that betrayed them at the end, and he wanted to go back to ignorance because they say ignorance is bliss.
Hand sits the red pill. Taking this pill will grant Neo access to the Matrix, allowing him to see the world for what it truly is, as nasty as it may be. This decision is the crucial point of Neo's story, and marks the first phase of Neo's hero's journey. The hero's journey is one of the oldest tales of mankind. It's a narrative structure that ranges from all kinds of stories. From Star Wars to the Bible, the term was coined by author Joseph Campbell. He describes this as being a deeply ingrained part of the human psyche that allows humans to push through walls and do the impossible in pursuit of meaning. In the real world, the hero's journey is our path towards self-improvement and overcoming our neuroticism, anxiety, fears, and laziness. Which is why right now we're seeing this whole new wave of self-improvement, serving as a counterbalance to the nihilism that's embedded so deeply in modern society. But this isn't a modern thing. In fact, many forms of Buddhism gave a similar path to enlightenment, along with so many other religions. The hero's journey is a process that's been taken by all of mankind. It's every step out of your comfort zone that brings you further towards truth. It's every action that you take towards self-improvement, which brings you closer to unlocking meaning in your life. And it's one of the key things that the Matrix tries to show. We see this clearly when Neo takes the red pill, and the world begins to melt around him, as he soon wakes up in a nightmare situation. Upon opening his eyes in the real world, Neo almost drowns, trying to remove all the cables that are attached to him in a pod. Once he catches his breath and takes a look around, Neo sees the true reality of the world, a human factory.
You know what's also crazy? I don't know if the director intended to pass this message, because those are metaphors. You know, they are the things keeping us connected to the Matrix: drugs, sex, you know, wars, religion, race, identity. You know, all these things that divide us, all these things that seem to carry so much meaning for no reason. Because if we really think about it, what does it all even mean at the end of the day? What does it mean to have a white skin and a black skin? What does it mean to be man and woman? What does it mean? Like, does it really matter? So much so that we're fighting battles and wars over this. So much so that brother kill brother over things as simple as a pack of cigarettes. You know, it's ridiculous from a bird's eye view. That what's all the struggle for? What's all the attachment for, the cables to these superficial things that mean nothing at the end of the day? Because at the end of the day, we're the same people. We're the same people. And that line is cliche because a lot of people have used it, but it's cliche because it works. You know, the cables keep us connected, keep us feeling like whatever reality we are living is somehow important, is somehow more meaningful than the truth. And what's the truth? The truth is whatever meaning, whatever purpose you were being called to as a person, your reason for being in this world. And people always ask, what's the meaning of life? You only have to look within yourself. You'll find it. That's all you have to do, look within yourself. But so many people are so used to distractions and social media and TikTok and YouTube. Nobody really wants to stop and reflect and pay attention and see and understand who they are, their flaws, their strengths, and what they are meant for. And that's all it really takes, to pause and reflect. And that's the hardest thing for most people to do.
Farm. As far as the eye can see, there lies identical pods attached to enormous constructs, all of them containing other humans being harvested for their energy. When a robot suddenly sees that Neo has managed to escape his sedation, he is quickly discarded and thrown down a trash chute towards a pit filled with water. Luckily, before drowning, Neo is picked up by the claw of a ship and is subsequently rehabilitated by Morpheus and his crew. When being operated on, Neo questions why his eyes hurt. Along with his extreme muscle atrophy, Morpheus explains the reason. Neo is in a full-on breakdown because he has never actually experienced any kind of bodily autonomy. Once Neo is brought to stable condition, he is plugged into a chair and enters the Matrix along with Morpheus, because Morpheus needs to show Neo the true reality of the Matrix. At first, Neo is in disbelief that he's inside a computer program, but Morpheus questions him on if this is actually so hard to believe. He explains that if what you can feel, smell, taste, and see, then what constitutes as real is simply electric signals being interpreted by your brain. After this explanation, Morpheus reveals that the outside world is in an even bleaker scenario than the one inside their home base. He explains that after losing control of artificial intelligence, humanity decided to create a nuclear winter, believing that a lack of energy from the sun will eliminate the machines. After the nukes, the world became a wasteland, run entirely by machines, while humanity was trapped in a dream world. This dream world is the Matrix, a simulation of humanity's golden age. It is all-encompassing and never stops for the people inside it, where they live their whole lives believing that the Matrix is real. And if this wasn't heavy enough, Morpheus then springs it onto Neo that he believes that Neo is the reincarnation of a man with the power to change anything in the Matrix. He is the One. If you've been following my videos, I'm sure you know how suspicious I am of mainstream media. Oftentimes, mainstream media can be the biggest impediment to understanding the truth and keeping you stuck in our
Yeah, I don't trust mainstream media at all. I don't trust mainstream news channels. Some people can call me conspiracy theorist, superstitious. Nah, I don't trust them, man. They lie to us too many times for me to just blindly give my trust to whatever the media is trying to convince you to believe. And a rule of thumb, whatever the media is trying to make you believe, whatever they're trying to make you know and support, it's usually the opposite. You know, I just go in the completely opposite direction. That's how I take it, because man, the truth is stranger than fiction, guys. It's stranger than fiction. I can't lie to you. And they are going to sell us fiction rather than the truth.
Initially not taking things very well, Neo panics at his newfound enlightenment. He's realizing that the entire world around him, all his friends, memories, icons, dreams are all warped for the benefit of an elite minority. It's as though the Matrix was a warning about the path modernity is taking us, where technology has infested every aspect of daily life to a point that we've attached our own psyches into the hands of a few. You see, in our age of overconsumption and mass production, the powerful must maintain constant relevance through advertising and media. By doing this, multinationals always assure continuous demand to drive continuous profits. Instead of just manufacturing a particular product, companies need to manufacture the structure, the personality, the culture of the universal public. And big tech serves as the perfect vessel to do this. Every day of your life, big tech delivers you into an alternative reality, playing on your emotions, depression, fear, anxiety, hunger, lust, laughter, acting directly on your sensorium. The content you are constantly watching every hour of every day of every year is not a vision but a manufactured data stream that can be sanitized to impose cultural values that generate immense wealth. Little do we realize that
It's not just enough for these power-hungry, money-driven individuals to convince you to buy their products. They've stopped trying to convince you. Now they're just out here conditioning you to need their products. So think about it. If social media makes you depressed and anxious and lonely and fiending for attention or fiending for love, you get to do all these other things that pay directly back into their pockets. You know, depression can make some people overeat, and the food company, they profit. You know, it can make some people pay for porn, and then that industry profits. You know, it can make some people pay for all these other things. It conditions us to need their products in one way, shape, form, or the other. You know, and so it's like infinite profit, because they just keep sucking everything that the average man has and just keep making money off the pain and struggle of the masses. That's why these people are so obscenely rich. It's because the suffering of people directly correlates to their success and wealth. That's literally the basis. That's the E equals MC square of this whole operation. You know, that's the basis. That's the starting formula for being stupid rich. profit off the suffering of others. That's it.
Every day we are chipping away our autonomy to an all-pervasive drug that delivers whatever message those dealing the drug wish it to be, providing a fertile ground for fostering technocracy. Which is why in the Matrix movie, this is symbolized by AI using human consciousness.
I mean, have you ever noticed or realized that we're in an age where we get anything we want? Like this, everything is literally at our fingertips, and yet we're the saddest and depressed we've ever been. Think about it. It makes no sense. If we have everything we want and everything we need at a snap of a finger, why are we so depressed? We don't need to hunt for food like our ancestors used to. We could just order Uber Eats. We don't have to walk hundreds of miles to get to our destinations. We could just order an Uber, So what exactly is the problem? Why are we so depressed? That's a question to be asked. You don't need a girlfriend. That's what they will have you believe. You don't need a man. Why not just watch porn, right? So why are we depressed? It's a question that needs to be asked. And the answer is dangerous and scary.
To fuel their ever-expanding empire. Neo realizes the challenge he is up against. He has to mentally and physically overcome the entire system he lived in to find true meaning, to save the entire human population. However, Neo's fears soon start to dissipate once he begins practicing and learning the inner workings of the Matrix. Back inside the program, Morpheus introduces Neo to a combat simulation inside of a dojo.
This is a sparring program, similar to the programmed reality of the Matrix.
It has the same basic rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be bent. Others can be broken.
Using a computer algorithm, Neo is able to completely understand the intricacies of Kung Fu, despite having never done so before. So Neo and Morpheus begin fighting. At the start, Morpheus is dominating. He seems unstoppable, he's flying across the room. And so when Morpheus asks why Neo lost, Neo explains that Morpheus is just too fast. But he counters this by saying that the fighting ability has nothing to do with their muscles. Cluing Neo in, Morpheus implies that Neo doesn't even need to breathe in air when inside the Matrix. So upon hearing this, Neo is able to overtake Morpheus during the second fight. He understands that the whole game is mental. If he can overcome the mental barriers inside of his mind, he can win anything. And by doing this, he stuns the whole crew watching the ordeal. This is all part of the trials and
Just another beautiful nugget of wisdom. It's all mental. It's all perspective. Our mind is the master and the slave. I saw that our mind is a terrible master, but an excellent slave. If you can subdue your mind, if you can make your mind do your bidding, the world is your oyster. You are king. You are damn near sovereign of this world, And that's why they target your mind. That's what social media, that's what the mainstream news is trying to do. They're trying to condition your mind so that they control your reality, so that they control the things that you're able to birth into your life, the things you're able to accomplish. They need to keep you subdued because they know that each and every individual is powerful enough to overthrow the system. And if we're so dangerous, better keep them as sheep before they realize that, oh, they have teeth. They're actually wolves.
tribulations that Campbell identified in the hero's journey. It's the mental game that serves as the greatest barrier to success. This is the step that Campbell describes as the training and tribulations in his work. This step happens once the hero has entered into the unknown and serves as their introduction into the new world. For Neo, this is quite literal. The skills he will need are taught to him after he first exits the Matrix and goes back inside to train with Morpheus. Neo's teachings also bring Neo closer to the truth. The more he learns about the real world and the Matrix that he lived in, the more he experiences both of them and the further he is pushed towards the truth. Afterwards, Morpheus introduces Neo to another program inside the Matrix, one that holds everything that is expected in a real city, ranging from buildings to cars and simulated people. Morpheus explains that the Matrix is their enemy, but most people are not ready to be unplugged from it, as they are too dependent on the system. While listening, Neo's eyes are caught by a striking woman in a red dress. When she gets behind Neo, the woman suddenly changes into an agent, pointing a gun at him. Morpheus then reveals that these agents are in fact sentient computer programs, fully capable of manipulating the Matrix at will. It turns out that everyone who has fought one of these agents was killed, but Morpheus, believing that Neo is the one, states that the agents will never be as strong or as fast as he can be. This dream world of the Matrix is a reflection towards fears of consumerism. You see, all these films in the late 90s were particularly concerned with this, as they saw their society become more and more focused on products and commodities. But nowadays, these fears are even more prevalent. The vessel of big tech dominates everyday life in a way that we've never seen before, where human values have been chopped up and commodified for a profit, where our opinions, our values, our culture, our thoughts are all controlled by technology that has saturated everything. And the numbers show that this is increasingly leading us towards nihilism. Just look around you. The atomization, the loneliness, the depression, the anxiousness, just as Neo's life in the Matrix.
The biggest thing that my generation can do to combat this thing, this disease that is spreading across humanity very fast, is to simply control their usage of social media. That's as simple as it gets. You know, you spend 20 hours a day out of your 24-hour cycle being absorbed in a world that isn't even real. Curated platforms, you know, highly edited social media apps, highly intentional social media apps. You get invested and absorbed in all the lies and brouhaha they have to tell you, when the truth is real life is nothing like that. Real life is very far from the ideal that they are selling to you. And you know the scary part? We do know this. Logically, we are not stupid. We know deep down that this is all fake, but for some reason we choose to believe and suspend our disbelief that somehow we're the only ones left behind and everybody else seems to have a manual to life, when the truth is we're all as lost as the next person. You know, social media is the enemy. Social media is the matrix. That's what connects us all to this fake reality. And AI is not going to do, AI is going to be worse. AI is really going to be a very big problem in the coming years, because as much good as it can do, it's equally capable of doing very, very much damage to the society. If we can't even separate humanity from AI now, we are not even sure half the pages on IG Reels are AI. What's to come? What's life going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Would we be having full-blown relationships and conversations with AI models and not even know that these are not real people? The world is heading towards a scary place, guys. It is. And if you guys can't see it, I don't know what to tell you, honestly.
Matrix made him nihilistic. To find meaning, we must continue our own journey. And the nature of the Matrix strikes a resemblance to the concept known as the habitus. The habitus is a sociological theory that tells us that from a young age, the social convention and rules that people follow are imprinted onto your personality. These conventions aren't just habitual, but instead influence people's ways of thinking and how they see the world. And once you become part of the habitus, your actions perpetuate the cycle for other people. The habitus can be viewed much like the rules of a game. Seemingly illogical things are taken for granted and enshrined as rules. If you didn't know the rules of golf, for example, the sport would just look ridiculous. Why not just pick up the ball and put it in the hole? But knowing the rules of golf means that you see this in an entirely different way. Of course, the rules of golf exist for a reason, otherwise it wouldn't be an actual game. But the habitus has no real purpose by itself. It exists as a manifestation of the environment you grew up in. So then who controls the rules and conventions that easily influence our thoughts? When you start to ask this question about your own life, you then start to see that once you break free of the constraints placed on you, that you can finally see the world as it truly is. And the Matrix is the allegory for this. It exists as a prison that surrounds you entirely, dictating what you see, what you value, and what actions you take. But none of this is actually real. Once these conventions, once these values, once these rules are tainted too much, the cracks start to show. And in the Matrix, the cracks show when Neo breaks free. This is Neo's journey, breaking free from the constraints of falsehood. It's only through his self-improvement and search for the truth that he can finally find meaning. It's during the time of Neo's training in the Matrix that we're introduced to the character of Cypher. From the very first conversation, Cypher
Oh yes, this is the guy that betrayed them later on in the end, Cypher. Every time I think of him, I think about Judas Iscariot.
explains that he should have just taken that blue pill and begins questioning the credibility of Neo's journey altogether. We then transition to the reveal of Cypher's endgame while he's dining in a restaurant inside of the Matrix, being joined by Agent Smith. Willing to sell out his whole crew, Cypher requests to be put back inside the Matrix. Of course, not without benefits. In return, he wants to be a rich, famous actor who doesn't remember anything about the real world. Here, Cypher's entire character is summarized as he states the line, "Ignorance is bliss." Meanwhile, Neo, Morpheus, and some other members of the crew enter the Matrix to meet an important figure called the Oracle. Upon arrival, Neo sees a group of children who are all doing seemingly impossible things. A few are manipulating objects like bubbles and blocks using their minds, and one child even manages to bend a spoon right in front of Neo. Neo takes an interest in the child, who explains that trying to bend the spoon is impossible. One has to realize that there is no spoon. They have to use their mind to overcome impossible obstacles. Once Neo hears this, he looks at the spoon and is able to easily bend it with his mind, just before he's quickly called off to see the Oracle. This spoon bending scene is important as it establishes the way out of the Matrix. As you start to realize that everything in your life is determined by your mindset, your life really begins to change. And the change of mindset isn't only an internal change, but also an external one. The way you see the world actually changes it around you. In an abstract sense, we all create our own realities through our experiences. The world is only made up of the data that our senses give us, and it's up to us to fill in the rest. In the movie, this is made literal. Neo can bend the spoon because he knows and accepts the truth that it's simply a figment of the Matrix, and in doing so, this puts him forward on his hero's journey. But because Neo hasn't fully accepted his journey, or fully understood the fact that he is the chosen one, the Oracle doesn't have good news for him, as she states that he really isn't the one. And once Neo is down receiving this bad news, Neo then gets a case of deja vu after watching a
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, you are equally able to change your world for the better as you are to change it for the worse. You know, it all depends on whether your mind is or the slave. We all buy into popular one-liners, popular statements, you know, and they say if you repeat something long enough, it becomes the truth. We all buy into the nihilism, we buy into the hopelessness, we buy into the loss of control over our lives. We believe that these massive corporations control everything, and so what can we do if not just fall in line? But see, that there is the lie, that there is the point of the Matrix, to make you just conform. You have to break out, and it's breaking out is hard. You're going against the crowd, you're going against the status quo. You will be met with resistance, guys.
The black cat repeats its movements. As soon as he says this indicates to the crew that there has been a glitch in the Matrix. It turns out that this whole visit was just a trap set up with the help of Cypher, and things start to go downhill from here, as Morpheus is then caught by Agent Smith, and the rest of the group flees to a nearby garage. As it's revealed that Cypher has backstabbed all of them, he then goes on to kill many of his crew, but is stopped right before he can kill the chosen one, Neo. This too is part of the hero's journey. Campbell shows that one of the key steps in your hero's journey is facing someone who wants to bring you back to where you started. And in the Matrix, Cypher represents this. He's the guys you know who want to bring you down. He's the other crab in the bucket. People don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to escape the Matrix surrounding you, because if you do, it shines a bad light on them. They know their flaws. They know their mindset is weak. Cypher's failed sabotage demonstrates the futility of the desire to go back to ignorance. And this is true for both our reality and the Matrix. Once the truth is uncovered, there's no going back. Which brings us on to one of the most interesting scenes in the movie, a dialogue between Morpheus and Agent Smith. Two equals and opposite sides of an extensive conflict between man and AI. Smith equates humanity to a virus, one that spreads exponentially while devouring all the resources in their way. And from the perspective of a machine, he isn't entirely wrong. Smith then clears his subordinates from the room and further levels with Morpheus. It turns out Smith hates the Matrix just as much as Morpheus, yet for very different reasons. Smith views himself as above it. Agent Smith represents the elite. He's the one who creates the Matrix. He hates the people inside of it. The people inside of it are the only ones feeding his life force, and yet he can't help but despise these people who live in blissful ignorance of the horrible world around them. They have no idea what the truth is. They don't know the darkness of the real world. And by accessing the secrets that Morpheus holds, this will allow Agent Smith to completely destroy the last remaining bastion of humanity in the outside world, a place called Zion. But before Smith can extract this information, Neo and Trinity storm the building with multiple firearms, rescuing Morpheus in the process. The trio make their escape through a phone booth, as Morpheus exits the Matrix along with Trinity, but not before witnessing Agent Smith at the last second second, leaving him alone with Neo. The two begin fighting, but Neo isn't able to keep up with Smith, and is eventually shot dead. Back on the ship with Morpheus and Trinity, they watch Neo as all of this happens. Devastated, Trinity whispers into Neo's ear that she would fall in love with the dead man, and that he is the one. As she kisses Neo, he is thunderously resurrected, almost in a biblical sense. This scene again is just another phase of the hero's journey, the point of deepest despair. It seems like all is lost as Neo lies unconscious, but when Neo makes the choice to save Morpheus, he begins the final steps towards his journey. His death and rebirth are literal, but they're also metaphorical. Mr. Anderson, the person with no purpose, the person who's nihilistic, the person who's self-hating, self-wallowing, living an atomized, transient, lonely life in a dystopian megacity, is gone. However, Neo is born. This sequence and what follows next is the conclusion of Neo's journey, where he faces his harshest challenge yet as he journeys into the
You know why sometimes you have to, in fact, most times, oftentimes, you have to hit rock bottom before you finally start seeing things look up. It's the only way is up, that's part of it. But when you hit rock bottom and you're able to stand up from rock bottom, nothing else can stop you. You've hit the rock bottom, you've hit the end. And even the end could not stop you. Even the depths of hell could not hold you. And that's why it's virtually impossible to defeat a man who has been broken, who has had everything taken from him, because he had everything taken from him and yet he's still here. Yet he's still pushing, yet he's still going. After that, nothing else can knock him down. And so he powers through obstacles like stepping stones. He powers through roadblocks like pebbles on the road. It's not because he just gained some sort of spiritual strength. It's just because he realized that, look, I can do anything. Nothing can stop me. Rock bottom couldn't stop me. So, and that's why sometimes you have to break down to break through. People think, oh, my life is in such a bad place. How could I ever, blah, blah, blah. It's because your life is in a bad place that your story is exactly the type to inspire the rest of the world. And that's why it's going to happen. Because you are going to be an inspiration. And that's what God uses his people for, to show that he is God.
The government building to rescue Morpheus. In doing so, he becomes the one. He conquers his mind, and by doing so, Neo fulfills his hero's journey. He finally finds meaning in life. Neo defeats the nihilism surrounding him by accepting the truth around the world. And from Neo's perspective, everything around him is now computer code. He effortlessly flies into Agent Smith, obliterating him and causing his colleagues to run away. Once all said and done, Neo exits the Matrix and detonates an EMP, securing the safety of his operation space back in the real world. The film then ends with Neo talking on a payphone, speaking directly to the audience. Neo sends a warning that he is going to expose the truth of what's really out there, and he proceeds to fly straight up in the sky as the film cuts to black. This end scene is an allegory of escaping nihilism. Through rejecting our fractured habitus and the false values of the virtual world, one can find meaning in reality. Among many, these consumerist forces we find today are distractions that drive people away from the truth. But with self-improvement and your own hero's journey, it's possible to escape the clutches of your own matrix. In the film, the bullets that would have killed Neo before simply stop in midair. In the same way, the things that seem like problems in the virtual world cease to matter when you stop focusing on them and pay attention to the real ones. This whole end scene is supposed to highlight the true power of overcoming our own mind, our own self-destructive thoughts, and our own self-limiting beliefs. By defeating his anxieties, Neo could defeat anything. It was only once he conquered himself that he could find transcendental meaning and overcome the impossible. Which is what this film is trying to show us, that when you realize that you have full control of your behavior, addictions, anxieties, relationships, health, and destiny, can you start to wake up from the delusion you've been living in. This is the only way of breaking through the matrix that has enslaved your life.
Yeah, guys, this was an amazing video by Moon. This honestly, there's not much I can say after that. That was the perfect ending. You control your life in every aspect of the word. You don't control the outcomes, but you control your life. Most things. If you want to lose weight, you know where to go. You know what to do. If you want a better relationship, leave the one that you're presently in and look for one that's better, because it's out there. You just have to go look for it. You want success? Build value. Do something that would make people look for you and pay you to do that thing. That's all it is. That's all it is. And you know what? It's the easiest thing to do because there can never be another you. There are people who might have similar skills as you do, you know? But just because everybody shoots three in the NBA, everybody is not Steph Curry, you know? Everybody drives to the rim, but not everybody is LeBron James. And that's just how it is. There are people, there will be competition in whatever lane you choose. There will be competition in whatever goal you choose to achieve, but you are only in a race with yourself because there is only one you. There only will ever be one you. Thank you guys. If you love this video, like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one. 10 out.